Welcome everyone to Grape Finance's weekly AMA. My name is Nikki and I'm here with LB. Welcome, LB.
Hey guys, thanks for listening in and joining in as well.
Yeah, definitely. I see some familiar names. I see Steve also in the audience.
Nice.
Maybe he'll come on stage at some point. Neat Grape, and a lot of other known. Hey, Lame Hillbilly in the audience. How are you,
Hey,
mate?
how you going?
Dear Coaz, Flavian. Yeah, happy to see you all around. Um, we don't have a lot of questions, but that never matters. And most of them are going to be about Vinium, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Before the AMA, we already had a quick talk about it and also
Mm-hmm.
had some chat about it where I had some questions about security, especially about liquidation, which you laid to rest, that I'm very happy about. So I think we are definitely ready to answer questions and to also answer concerns if any people have them. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, hope that we can move from beta to launch soon.
Yeah.
So about that beta launch,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, with the OGs, do you have anything you'd like to share about that? How did it go?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's been doing well. I think we have don't look like we have over 20 grand in there, which is actually a reasonable amount for beta launch. The DAO itself hasn't really added any funds. Like I added like $5 into each of the pools to test everything out and whatnot, but we haven't actually seeded any funds yet. So it's all actual OG funds in there right now. I did say
I
like
said
it's yeah.
so that 1.5 USDT is actually the DAO then.
There's the
I
DAOs. I
was
don't know
wondering.
why people don't like USDT. It's funny. It's funny because USDT is the longest running stablecoin by far. It's been
Yeah.
around a very very long time and it's survived multiple bear markets and extreme market crashes. There's questionable things about the collateral and whatnot, but it's the same as like USDC. Like they're managing the collateral. Whenever a central company is managing the collateral, there's the potential for them to do riskier plays and sort of also lose that money. But it's funny because the Western world is really tied to USDC, and then the rest of the world doesn't use USDC. They use USDT. And I don't know why that is, but it's like a divide. But yeah, I don't know, just like a random tangent.
So the OGs who have collateralized already are probably Westerners then. We should know our
Yeah.
audience. I see AVAX as an opportunity. I
Yeah.
didn't even know you could get that anywhere. That's probably just already staked AVAX you can buy somewhere then, right?
You can buy it, yeah, you can buy it on Trader Joe. You can obviously stake it yourself on BenKey.
Mhm.
And the reason for that, obviously, like the reason for having it there is it's basically AVAX, but you get the staking yield as well. So in other words, it almost is like self-repaying in that sense. But it gives opportunities for good staked liquid staking looping strategies, essentially, where you borrow AVAX, you stake the AVAX, you get a SAVAX, then you deposit that, you borrow more AVAX, and you like continue that loop around. And depending on the rates of deposits and borrows, you can get a pretty decent yield from that without sort of having to worry about the collateral, in other words, because it actually is just AVAX to AVAX. So it's a cool little thing.
It definitely is. It's one of the many uses that lending and borrowing platform can be used for.
Yeah.
We actually went over that a little earlier today,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm definitely, it's definitely one of those things that we're going to explain to those people who don't already understand it.
Mm.
Because we're still looking to do a lot of education, and I think it's also pretty well explained in the docs already. All credits to
Mm-hmm.
Nick for that. So good stuff. Um, do you have anything else to add before I start with the question? Like,
Um,
the grape burned or anything else?
yeah, there was obviously a great burns every week. I mean, the raisin is doing pretty well actually. We added Mim
Yeah.
to the raisin minting as well, just to make it kind of like, I don't know, easier for you guys rather than having to. If you don't already have LP, then you can just use Mim, and then we can do it on our end basically. But I've been keeping a decent amount of the extract that we get, but also burning a little bit. We have a bit of a meme, like a meme number right now in terms of the burn figure, which we'll keep for a little bit, and and then we'll add some more to the burn tracker.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it's really cool. For those people who don't have the grape site ready, it's 469 and 069 469 069.
yeah, the burn. Yeah,
Uh,
so we have more like I think I got another 6,000 grape in the DAO wallet just like sitting there. So that's technically ready for the burner whenever we want to get rid of the
but you
meme. We'll
don't
do
want
that very soon.
to you don't want to mess up this number. Yeah, I get you. All right. Then we move on to oh, wait, there's some people typing in the AMA questions. I would ask you to go to the AMA live chat because I'll get there at some point. All right, then we'll start with questions. The first one is Sakumana. That was actually answered last AMA. So the first real one is Cabernet 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 Taldor. I don't know. Anyway, they're saying with the recent drop in grape notes, TVL, and APR, do we know how much claimers APR drop versus compounders? Trying to see why we should compound even though we can't keep up with the APR drop.
Yeah, I think there's also an issue with the TVL being in dollars, which obviously is reliant on the price of grape. Then, so the TVL in terms of raw grape has still like dropped a little bit, but nowhere near the amount in like dollars, because of the grape price dropping. So it's technically a little bit deceiving in that regard if you're looking at TVL in terms of the dollar value. But the issue is to do with sort of like APR and compounding, and really we need to. This is why I'm working on a new, essentially like a migration for that again, but essentially with a an upgradable contract, and a fixed APR, so that we can kind of fix that issue, so to say. But still, the APR for compounders is always going to be more than pure claimers. Eventually, pure claimers drop quite substantially in their APRs, compared to compounders, which get a little boost when they compound, but overall it's based on the pool APR, obviously. So there is still some drop if the pool APR in terms of grape drops, but nowhere near as much as pure claimers, so to say, because they get double penalized essentially when claiming.
And all right, and I understand upgradable contracts, and I'm really or understand them insofar as that I know what they're about and how they work, so to speak. But you say a fixed APR. Does that mean that the APR no longer changes according to how many nodes are bought, or what do you mean fixed APR?
Yeah, looking for the mechanism is still kind of in design, but we're looking to kind of, because one of the issues here is obviously the APR. This is what people want actually. So we have to possibly design a system around that, and so in other words, it would, but also still incentivize compounding over claiming. So we can have a tiered system where the APR doesn't necessarily depend on the full TVL, so to say, but it has fixed tiers based on your actions and rewards based on that. Kind of like similar, I guess, to the presses. In other words, you each have your own APR based on especially with like the soda press and all those, based on your actions essentially. And everybody has a different APR, so it's fixed but with tiers based on your behavior.
That sounds pretty neat, pretty cool. Then we move on with Neat Grape, and Neat Grape has started to get you some variations on your initials. So this one is good
Yeah.
day, Leviathan Brain. Leviathan Brain. So good day, Leviathan Brain. I know it's a little while off, but what are your current thoughts around incentivizing farms once wine emissions end? Well, the farms will end, right? So it would be other
Yeah.
stuff, right?
So I mean, I don't want to force incentivization through some sort of like token emissions. Just because then now we have to deal with that token emissions itself. So the idea with the farms essentially, or the LPs really, is the idea is that we are going to have liquidity through the presses. Obviously, that's something that we've already kind of done with the wine press already has quite a substantial amount of the actual liquidity for wine just by itself. And so that's obviously a good mechanism that we're going to use for that. But also, coming up with some. Obviously, we also have POL that we're already getting through the Raisin, and there's a couple. There's another mechanism I want to try with that on the grape side directly as well to get POL. But and as well with Revest, when that comes around, when they launch, we'll also be getting PL through that as well. So that's another little bonus. And then probably when Glacier launches, we'll have engage in some of that, some of the vote, essentially the bribing. In other words, is what a lot of protocols do actually for incentivization of their LPs without having to, for themselves, having to have their own token be used as incentive. They essentially purchase, essentially like we can use Curve as an example. They purchase Curve token, lock that up, and then they're able to vote on emissions for the Curve token, essentially. So then you can do it for your own token. Obviously, that's a little bit of a process, and there's a competition there. So, but these sort of mechanisms, that the sort of bribe war mechanism, exists on a lot of exchanges now, especially. So that's like a way we can definitely incentivize LPs without even having to have our token be the farm token, essentially, which is always nice.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is we have POL, which will always make it possible to trade at least some of our tokens, and then we'll have our games, all kinds of games that actually use LP for it to work. So that means that as long as you're playing those games, you're actually adding to the LP. And last but not least, there's a way for the protocol to try and vote our way into getting getting tokens our ways and incentivization for our LPs? Well, it's a very clear answer actually, and it's I think that should provide some calm
Yeah,
for the
and the
team, because
presses as
people have
well
been.
are
Yeah,
sort of
yeah, that
like an extra thing.
yeah, oh yeah, I consider the press as a game, but
Oh yeah,
maybe not
that's
everyone
true.
does
That is
that.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of a game, but it's just my way of speech, I would say. But this is actually a very good answer, because a lot of people have been asking this for throughout the year, I think, and
hmm
and of course we've always been saying like, hey, we'll figure this out. But by
hmm
now, there's actually some figuring out done, and well, you've just
hmm
beautifully said it. All right. Yeah, well, that's true, right? The next one is Saint, that asks, could we add a boost to the Enotica, and whatever, where you also earn raisin? Since you can mint raisin with vintage MIM already, this could be a way to incentivize more liquidity for vintage and in the Enotica.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. And I think I may actually swap that around so we can kind of halt maybe the vintage emissions through that, which is always good to kind of cut down on the inflation. But then offer a raisin instead, which is used in the game directly. So that's all obviously a benefit for LPs there. To add, even just a little bit of liquidity to get a little bonus on raisin for free, essentially. Obviously, you take the risk of being an LP, but you don't lose the capital. In other words, like there's no capital lock or loss or anything like that. So yeah, probably will do that.
Pretty good. And then we move on to EBT, the god of stolen whistles. How poetic. Uh, they have a question that's actually interesting, maybe for Lame Hillbillies, because it's about cross-chain liquidity. I know we branched out to the BSC, but what I would like to know is how the team is planning on growing the liquidity cross-chain. Do we already need to? Is another question, but yeah, what's your answer
Yes.
to this?
So that's the thing. We can do that at any time. We're bridged on FTM and BSC, and we can technically go to any chain really. But right now, there's not really a need for it. It doesn't. There's no real benefit. Only like arbitrage would be sort of like, I guess, some sort of use for it. I mean, right now there's no real benefit for it, so we're not looking into that right now. In other words, but in other words, it's the same sort of mechanism as what we do after the farms, and we can do the exact same sort of thing cross chain. So that's presses, some sort of bonding mechanism for POL, possibly. That may be a little bit more difficult cross chain, but presses can definitely be done, and as well, bribing mechanics are on every chain, regardless. So that's another thing there.
Yeah. Yeah, basically the only real reason to intrinsically or from your own perspective go to different chains is when you want to be bridging. The reason otherwise would always be external, like some other protocol being willing to do something with your tokens, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and right now there's no protocol calling for Grape at the moment, so there's no real reason to
yeah.
increase cross-chain liquidity.
hmm
Right. Then we move on to Saint asking any plans to expand the winery collection NFTs. It was only limited to 2,700, I believe, right? Could we run a phase 2 min that maybe ties into some more sustainable rewards like mining? Team up with WAC. And
hmm
also, that's the second question. So, winery collection redo. Well, there's
Yeah,
some for sale, right? On the NF Trade. I've seen some.
Yeah. There's I mean, there's always a market for it. Secondary market. I mean, we technically technical wise, we can't increase the supply of that exact NFT in the contract. It's limited directly to 2,700. But I do still like the idea of because I do actually want to do a different, at least a new run of NFTs for an external investment product, essentially, which may also be something which may also include, looping strategies within Vinium as well to generate yield on, say, stablecoins. But obviously, to do that, we need funds to actually invest. So we would need to do a mint with that for that essentially. But yeah, there is some the way to do it, because I do want to do, as I said, I do want to do another run specifically for that, for like an investment portfolio NFT. But we couldn't just extend the current collection, so we would need to possibly offer some sort of bonus for the existing collection, or a mint and burn or something. Maybe it's just like part of the run. Maybe it's just like part of the they get backtrack bonuses essentially, or something like that. So yeah, something to think about, and something that we'll likely do anyway. Like if we do it, essentially when we do this NFT portfolio, we will tie in the winery collection NFT with it. So yeah.
So that old holders don't get bugged out of their
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been the thought process all along, right? That
Mm-hmm.
old tokens don't get invalidated with us. Like we don't move to a V2, and old grape doesn't mean anything anymore or whatever. And we do the same with the NFTs, right? The old
Mm-hmm.
NFTs will always remain valuable. Cool. Um, but it's something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I also have the feeling that right now expanding such a list would be um, might not be the good time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simply
Mm-hmm.
because we already have some trouble getting to PAG even. But maybe, some kind of mint that would help us get back to PAG or whatever might be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But other than that, might simply want to wait for better times or something.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
It's
sure.
not. It's something that we're thinking about, but not
Yeah,
immediate. Immediate term. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Also, any insight on how Grapefinium and Frozen Walrus's new Glacier decks can mutually benefit from each other?
Yeah. So there's some cool things we can do there. Obviously, I do like the idea of the sort of balance flexible pools where you can have um, essentially like 80-20, in other words, uh, native token to non-native, so you can get cheap liquidity, in other words. So that's something that I'm definitely thinking about for the Vinny token, possibly for grape and wine if we migrate over to have a way to make cheap liquidity using that sort of technology. And then also, we'll be doing some like ETF based pools as well, with varying tokens of varying ratios with them. So I already kind of discussed. I've already kind of discussed with Owen as well on that sort of stuff. So we'll be doing. We're close to them anyway, so we'll be doing quite a few things with them. And I think with Vinium specifically, there's obviously things that we can do, things that I'd like to do as well, where we have accept the balance of tokens, essentially the LP token, as collateral that then can be looped around to essentially leverage yields, in other words. So that's something as well.
All right, so lots of cool stuff coming. And then moving on to Neat Grape, who has another interesting name for you. Hello, Lego Builder. How, how is the Vinium beta gone this week? Any big unexpected findings? And do you have any alpha on when wine stakers could expect to start receiving Vinium revenue share? Loving the platform, such a sleek feel. Oh, I do agree on that, by the way. Such a sleek feel. It looks really nice, but that's the same as with the Grape UI. It really looks nice, but Vinium also looks really nice. Just
Yeah,
very
cheers.
calm to the mind, and it's at the
Very
same
calm,
time,
yeah.
yeah, well, it's different. Like if I look at Aave, I don't have this idea of space, and this just this backdrop at Vinium gives me the idea that I'm overlooking something. I'm not, but it seems that way, so I like it.
Yeah,
But back to the question, like any unexpected findings, any alpha, and Vinium
Mm.
revenue share on for wine stakers, stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, well, I guess I mean, I think it's gone well. There hasn't been any major issues, which is always good. Couple, mostly suggestions, little suggestions, which is always nice. Nothing that's like kind of breaking or anything like that, which is really good. I am still working on kind of hardening an oracle for Xgrape, because with Xgrape we have the essentially Xgrape's going to be in an isolated pool anyway, so that's how we're limiting risk by itself. So with lending pools, I know everybody wants to use all their tokens as collateral. It'd be lovely to do so, but it's especially with peer to pool lending, it's a very big risk, and you can see it all the time that lending protocols get attacked very often, primarily through low liquidity tokens, because they're cheap to manipulate, and then you can you know siphon liquidity out, like actual USDC or whatever. You can siphon out by doing so, and we see this pretty often, and obviously I want to avoid that. It's a big thing to avoid. So that's like the number one thing to avoid. So I've been working on really hardening an oracle for Xgrape, because obviously it's not a Chainlink token. It's not. We can't just use the Chainlink feed. The Chainlink doesn't just offer. You can't just list your token on Chainlink either to get it as a feed. So we have to use a custom oracle essentially for it. Similar to a TWAP, but it has to be a little bit more hardened than a TWAP, with some essentially like circuit breakers, so that if someone does manipulate the pool, because the liquidity is low, it's say 400k liquidity. That's still technical. That's a lot of liquidity, but it's kind of low for a manipulator. It doesn't cost much to manipulate. So in other words, we need to make sure that that's not possible. So I'm working on some oracle variations to essentially keep that from happening, and also alerting alerting that's essentially an alert system, in other words, as well as circuit breakers if price moves too quick, too fast. And we will also keep it in an isolated pool where you'll be able to borrow MIM and probably USDC as well against it. But it will be in its own pool, so that it doesn't. So it's essentially, if anything happens in that pool, it's separate from the main pools, which are all tokens that have very high liquidity and are very difficult. And obviously, they all have Chainlink oracles as well, so they're pretty much impossible to manipulate in that regard. So that's something that I'm thinking that that's kind of like the big thing that I'm working on for that. And I know you want to use X-Scrape as collateral. I think it'd be pretty cool anyway because you can, technically loop around and leverage that APR. But we will also keep the LTV pretty low as well. But the liquidation threshold will have a large gap, so you'll be protected in that regard too. I mean, I guess in terms of when winestakers can start receiving Vinium revenue, I mean, obviously it's going to be highly dependent on when we actually have revenue.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can't really answer that question right now. Like, you can stake in the winery and be able to receive revenue share when it comes around. But obviously, I can't say exactly because we actually need revenue to be able to provide that revenue. So we need to
It would
build
be nice
TVL.
though. It would be
Yeah.
nice though if you tell the community when you're planning on doing that, because I think a lot of people, for example, have also put their wine in Phantom House, being the house, and
Yeah, that's probably good.
on many different. Yeah, it is really good, but it would be nice to know like, hey, when is this um, revenue staking coming online, because then I feel that I, for example, would return to the winery. Like I would return my
Mm-hmm.
wine from my house back to the winery because I would want the revenue. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
and so I think it just requires a sharing. I also think it's not a bad thing to be in an isolated pool with Xgrape. I mean, it's good enough to be borrowing MIM and USDC against it. I mean, that's basically what we all want, right?
Mm-hmm.
At
Yeah.
least I feel that way. So yeah, that's and then people can loop it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Mm-hmm.
can make it even more cool.
Yeah.
There was
So I
one
mean,
thing that. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I guess I'll just say, like, wine revenue. Obviously, we will let you know ahead of time when there is revenue to distribute. Um, but the revenue, I'll say, from the platform comes from borrows. So we need to incentivize people borrowing, tokens, so that we can receive a share of that revenue, the interest, in other words, and then distribute that. So until we launch, and then kind of push out some of these strategies as well, to incentivize the borrowing, then we'll have revenue to distribute. And obviously, you should be able to see ahead of time if we have borrows or not. That's something to look for. We have borrows, we have decent TVL, we have revenue. Therefore, it can be distributed. But obviously, we'll let you know, like, more than, you know, more than like a week before we can
Put it like a week in
distribute.
advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's good because especially in Phantom House, I think there's 4 hours a week that you can unstake your house claim. So,
Oh yeah.
um,
I thought you changed that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, maybe they did. Well, it used to be 4 hours a week. Anyway, um, there was one thing that I was worried about, and there was no one in the OG chat who had an answer to that, but you actually had an answer to that, so I would like to regale that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was worried because I had put up some USDC for collateral, and then I saw that there was USDC borrowed. And so, for example, I had put up 1500 USDC and some. Well, if I now check and want to withdraw, I cannot withdraw full 1500 because it's, basically loaned out to other people. So, for example, I don't know exactly how much I can withdraw, but let's just say I can withdraw 500, right? So I was scared that what if I borrow AVAX and then that AVAX rises, um, I should be able to get liquidated, right? And so I was scared that if there is only 400 USDC available, that I cannot be liquidated, and that therefore the protocol would be in danger. But you laid that to rest by explaining that flash loans can solve that. So the protocol can create a flash loan to pay off to actually flash loan the USDC and pay off the debt, and then um, uh, what it does is that the one that creates the flash loan then actually gets um, the what's that, the collateral, like the
Mm-hmm.
collateral chips.
Yeah, they'd
So
get a bonus. Yeah.
yeah, so basically the problem is solved. Like you can still get liquidated even though your collateral asset
Yeah.
isn't fully available. Like that, this was something that I was worried about, but shouldn't
Yeah,
be.
yeah. So, liquidators, essentially bots, scan the chain for, you know, health factors of accounts on the contract. And if your health factor drops below 1, the liquidator or the bot will call a function on the contract to liquidate you. And usually, unless you have a lot of money just kind of sitting in the liquidator bot, which usually they don't, because it's inefficient capital wise. They Most liquidators use flash loans, um, you know, from like Aave. Obviously, our platform has flash loans built in as well. Um, if you don't know what a flash loan is, it's basically you being able to borrow. You can borrow essentially an unlimited amount of money, whatever's available in the pool. You can borrow that with no collateral for one transaction. So it has to be paid back within that transaction, and that's automatic. So you can actually call a function on the contract on our lending pool contract to flash loan, and you just select whatever you want to borrow, and then you can essentially run whatever other transactions you want to do. Usually, people that take flash loans use it for liquidations because then you don't have to actually put up any capital. You can just okay, he's borrowed BTC. So I need to flash loan BTC, pay back that in the one transaction, and then I'll be getting a portion of the collateral that he used against that, and then the flash loan is paid back within that same transaction. So they're pretty cool. It's a pretty cool technology um, that is used pretty often, and it's also used pretty often in manipulation attacks, as I was saying before, with oracles and whatnot. Usually, rarely you would see an oracle attack where someone actually goes and buys the token with, money that they actually have. Usually what would happen, because obviously that's a risk to them. Usually what would happen is they just borrow flash loan, 10 million, $100 million, and then, manipulate the price, do their attack, and then the flash loan's paid back and they got the profits. So, it's used for good and bad. It's a tool. It's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah.
I like it.
But you defend against that, right? So
Yeah.
that if a flash loan happens and, for example, buys and immediately sells one of the assets that's on the um, um, on Vinium, that people don't immediately get liquidated because in that one block the price is higher or whatever. There's a defense against that, I assume.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hardening this oracle for Grape for specifically to
Yeah.
essentially fight against that, because it is all to do with the pricing and the oracle. So we need to, especially on low liquidity tokens, um, the more liquidity you have, the more spread out you are. Like for Bitcoin, for example, like basically impossible. Like you're gonna need a lot of money, and even still, we use the Chainlink oracle, which isn't a adjusted oracle for an LP. It's uses many sources and uses a volume weighted adjustment for for the price. So that oracle itself is manipulation resistant by itself.
Good. That's really important, I would say.
Mm.
Then need when just asks when because of his name. But anyway, he found it. Um, Congratulations on Finium. When public launch and marketing. Also, when wine staking for revenue. I need when, so we focus on when questions. Yes, well, all of these have been answered already, except I think for public launch and marketing.
Yeah, probably. We can probably launch as is now, like pretty ASAP. And then technically run Xgrape as a when that oracle's done. So probably this week is when we may open up publicly. So
Right. Cool. We'll get that then. Finium launch date, beautifully. Yeah, well, ASAP. Will Wine receive revenue from Finium on other platforms other than Avalanche? Well, yeah, this ties into a thing I was wondering.
mhm,
Aave is obviously on different chains, right? It's on multiple
mhm,
chains. I
yeah,
think it's effectively on 3 or 4 because they've closed down a few, like Phantom and another one. But what I saw there is that even though it's on different chains, all of these markets are um, individual markets. So if
mhm,
you put up collateral on the Matic chain, it doesn't do anything for you on the Avalanche chain. And I
mhm,
was wondering, like I don't really see why they do that, right? I don't really see um why you wouldn't just be putting up collateral and pull it all together, right? Over all chains and then be able to borrow over all chains. So
mhm,
I was
mhm.
wondering, would that be a feature that Vinium would be working towards, or is there a real reason for Aave to do this? And is it simply dangerous?
Well, that is something that I'm thinking about, and there are varying solutions to that. There are some like layer zeros that can technically allow cross chain collateral borrows, and essentially other bridges and whatnot that have the one pull on one chain, and then um, you know allow collateral and borrows from any chain. But I think the main issue really is that all the tokens are different on all the chains. That's really the issue. Um,
Yeah.
on ETH you have ETH, and then on AVAX you have WETH, which is a different token, and it's an ERC20 on AVAX, and on Ethereum it's the native gas token. It's a totally different token essentially. Although it's the same, it's totally different how it works behind the scenes. So, and as well, you have the same thing as like AVAX. AVAX, I don't think even exists on Ethereum. So there's the technical challenge in that really, which is tokens aren't the same on each chain. So having a one chain with all the liquidity is really nice as an idea, but very technically challenging as to what you'd be able to offer and how you would be able to offer it essentially as well. So I'm thinking is ways that we can do that. There's a couple of things I've looked into actually that it can, because this is kind of one of the things that I would actually want to do, um, especially doing non EVM chains as well would be really nice. There's another challenge, a technical challenge in that, but if we can crack that, that's a pretty cool thing.
Right. Just
Yeah.
for people listening, EVM is Ethereum Virtual Machine. So actually, whatever we have in our MetaMask are all of those chains are EVM chains,
Mm.
but others are, for example, Solana and
Hmm.
ADA and other networks which are not compatible with the ETH chain. Um,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. So that is pretty cool. Like I'm like I think not as a programmer, right? I think as a tokenomist. So I'm like, hey, but they all have a value, right? They all have an oracle. So it should be that a certain value is your collateral and a certain value is your borrow. But I can imagine, yeah, that it's not easy to actually make that work. It might especially if you want to do it all on chain, like if you want to do it off chain or make some sort of a ledger off chain, but then that would essentially turn you into a bank, right? So
Yeah.
that's not what we want, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I can understand, but I'm really happy you're thinking about it, and really happy that you're trying to tackle this problem.
Mhm.
And
I think it'd be a good
I don't know.
feature. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, layer zero could be a solution. I'm looking forward to this, but right now there's enough to do. But if it could be done, if this could be done, it would definitely be so big that I I I think it would draw attention because
Mhm.
nobody else is doing this yet. So yeah, it would be really cool.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Where are we? When can we stake wine? Oh yeah, so the question was when wine will receive revenue from Vinium on other platforms other than Avalanche. Well,
Mhm.
so it will probably take a while before Vinium is deployed on other chains as well, because it needs to run well on Avalanche first, right? And then you just copy and paste, I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say.
We'll probably launch on ZK Sync testnet soon, so that we can at least have a like be part of their ecosystem essentially before they launch is like a strategic thing for us.
Yeah, because they're new.
Yeah, and they should be pretty big. And I think obviously you want to be a early mover there. But in other words, doing distributing revenue cross chain is another challenge in itself. And I think there's ways that we can probably do it. There's obviously a lot of ways we can do it, and it's just kind of figuring out the way that makes the most sense. So there's something we work on. We probably want to do that to distribute revenue across chain. Is what I mean.
Peter Flea's enjoying it. Let's get some hype fits going again. Um, yeah, I don't know who's doing the hype fits. I'm probably gonna do some ad fits, not education fits, not hype fits. So, but maybe someone is going to do some hype fits. There was we never hear from him again, but we had this guy who was really good at it. Oh well, he's away. Um, Going on to Neat Grape. Uh, hey, Luigi's brother. Like, he's getting creative here. What are your current thoughts around the remaining V1 nodes? Which ones are you interested in transitioning to V2 contracts, presses, or liquidating?
Yeah, I think
It's only Grape, right? It's only the Grape node.
yeah, the grape
Oh,
node. I mean, it's we have the other two nodes too. We're going to migrate the grape bin ones probably to a press, um, some mechanism like that. The grape porous ones will probably essentially end and then give X grape and X walrus as essentially a mutual protocol benefit for both protocols that is both earning reasonable returns as well. Um, and I spoke earlier about the grape nodes to kind of solve the issue of the APR there as well. So, I mean, a couple of things to do there. Uh, I think that covers it though.
right. Oh, it would be interesting. I mean, I still have the Swapsicon node and the Grape node. I still have some, and they don't really do anything. So yeah, it would be nice
Mhm.
if they change.
Yeah.
Although I did see that this 50% claim fee
Mhm.
changed something in the Grape nodes. It actually upped the APR a bit more. So there are some things going on that are
Mhm.
positive about it. But yeah, they are hurting. Um, all right. Peter Flea, wine utility, please, because this price is. Does he mean son of a bitch? I don't know. SOB, SOB. Yeah. Utility. Well, that's actually what we have been talking about. But in the meantime, check out Phantom House, right? Because there is some wine
Mhm.
utility right there. It does mean, getting more or less wine, so it's not huge utility, but you something at least.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, uh, Other than that, yeah, I get it, right? Because as long as grape is under peg, wine isn't doing anything.
Mhm.
Um, it's been a long time, and yeah, the price is showing it.
Mhm.
9,337 at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, but with Vinium, it will come, right?
Mhm.
There will be some revenue
Well,
sharing
that's
there,
it's
and that
it's a
would
revenue
be
share. I mean, it's not going to
yeah,
be Degen returns, so definitely don't expect that. But it's going to be real token returns that you don't even have to sell.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I'm definitely going for it. Like, I'm just gonna stake my wine and see what comes. It would be it's essentially unlimited passive income, right? You just get
Mhm.
a share from a lending and borrowing platform, and that's
Mhm.
probably gonna be used for a
Mhm.
long, long time because it's just
Yeah.
very
Well, it's
useful.
not relying on any sort of inflation schedule, like essentially like the farms are now. Like it's a year of yield, and then that's it. So, it doesn't
Yeah.
rely on that, it relies on the service. As long as the service is around and people use the service, well, then it will generate some sort of revenue that can be distributed. Um, and so, yeah.
Yeah. And especially at this price, I mean, wine is so cheap. So you could just, gobble up some more wine. I actually did that yesterday or so. I bought some more. Uh, you could actually just gobble up some more wine and then be staking it, and then even if it's only $50 or $100 of passive income a month, it would still be $50 or $100 of passive income a month, right? Any
Hmm.
any passive income is better, I would say, than active income. But that's
Hmm.
just me, I guess. I like living my life and doing other stuff with my life. Than working for a boss.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Dirk, shout out by the way to Dirk because he's always been here and
Yeah.
has been cool questions from the very beginning.
Hmm.
He says 8 November 22 upcoming midterm elections in the USA. A question for all, audience included. And that tells me like, hey, if people wanna, get on stage or whatever, it is a possibility. Oh, we're running out of time. I've been, chatting so nicely, but um, that's okay. I think we'll go over the hour a bit more. Um, Anyway, audience included, do you have any general market insights that you'd like to share based on your research and experience? Do you expect crypto to rally following the election day on November 8th? A disclaimer is not financial advice, of course. And while you answer that, I'm gonna check the AMA live chat to see if people
Hmm.
want to say something about that.
Um, I think, it's technically still bear market, obviously. Macro picture is bleak. Inflation's very high. They're going to have to continue raising interest rates. Uh, Jerome Powell essentially mentioned that in this week, saying that they're not pivoting at any time soon, which makes sense. You need to inflation is quite high. You need to raise interest rates until it comes down. And you look at the relative figure of interest rates as they are now. I think it's like 4% in the US. is still like that's a low interest rate. Really, if you look at historic interest rates, it's very low for the amount of inflation that we have right now. You look in the late 70s, early 80s, inflation was very high, like it is now, essentially. Especially if you use the same kind of methodologies to calculate it. But interest rates back then in the double digits, 15, 18%. So I'm not saying it's going to get that high. I'm just saying that macro hasn't changed, but and as well, I usually would expect we have a run into the election, into the midterm election, and then less of a run post it. It's like a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of thing. With elections. I think we'll range for a little while, for quite a while, to be honest. Probably for like a year, we're going to range. There'll be good rallies. There'll be some sell-offs, basically, and then bull will hit again, and it's going to come out of nowhere, and it's going to be crazy fast-paced for like a few months. It's just going to be up only. And then it will start again, then it'll go down and it'll start the cycle again. So, that's just basically probably what's likely going to happen. You can look at, 2018, 2019. It's kind of like, you have some rallies, but it's within a range. And then 2020 starts like picking up a little bit, crosses the high. And then really starts taking off very quick. So it's a good time to accumulate good coins and position yourself well for the next bull.
Yeah, that's sort of what it's about. Like all of these tokens right now, like BTC and ETH and all the others and AVAX, they're not stable, but as layer ones go, they're kind of stable. So it kind of makes sense that the price they are at now is kind of remaining the same price, and the same with Grape. Actually, it's been around the current price for quite a while now. So it might not be at its $1 value, but it's stable at this price. So that uh, that is one thing. Like you can just slowly add up to your position without too much risk. Although it can always fall far further down. There's not too much down left to go.
That's the thing, right? You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
how far down are we from the highs? Like the prices are good now. They may fall down a little
Yeah.
bit more, but price is already really good.
Yeah, that was I think it was Elio Trades who said that, like, hey, the BTC may be 20K and it might even fall to 12K or 10K, but even then, 20K is a good price to be getting it at. Even though it might fall to half that, you don't know that. But what you do know is that in a couple of years it will go up something fierce. This, of course, is not 100% knowledge, but I kind of believe it, and I think that most people in crypto do believe that, like that there is still a good future for all of these cryptocurrencies. Especially now, there was a paper that was I don't know who. Oh yeah, it was the Coin Bureau who had leaked about a paper that was given out under institutional investors, where it was clear that cryptocurrency had a lot of use cases for institutional investors, and it was actually seen as a pretty positive thing to be investing in. And one of the main reasons for it was to have to have the government have less control over your assets, because that's becoming an issue more and more. I mean, I've seen like I'm in the Netherlands, right? And I saw a news item come by where there's a proposal, an actual proposal in the government where they want to check all of our spendings over 100 euro, like, and not simply just to see them, like where do you spend this? And this is insane, right? So if I go have a party somewhere and spend 100 euro, or if I don't know, if I uh, do whatever, then the government's gonna know that. So that
Mhm.
that is something that I don't want to live that way. I don't want to, go to something and have the government know about all of my affairs. Um, uh, that's insane. Like, so, and especially institutional investors should not want that either. So cryptocurrency as a use case is becoming more and more interesting. And since that is the case, I think cryptocurrency has a very, very bright future for all kinds of institutions and people who just want to stay out of the reaches of the government, because it's becoming a very infringing upon privacy, even
Mhm.
more than it already was.
I
So yeah,
definitely agree.
uh,
That's definitely one of the reasons why I love crypto, and what got me into
yeah,
Bitcoin originally is because it is your money. It's yours. It's not the banks. It's not governments. It's it's actually your money, and you can do
yeah,
whatever you want with that. And that's very powerful. It's very liberating. And we're heading into the future now, where every major central bank will be issuing a central bank digital currency, and we don't know exactly what that entails, but it does entail more control over your money. Likely, we're going to
yeah,
see cash be phased out um, in the next sort of 50 years in almost every country, I believe. Already seems in a lot of like forward, fintech based uh, countries, kind of like in Australia. Uh, Cash is obviously still used and whatnot, but most places, you just tap your card basically, and that's it. And
yeah.
so most places you don't actually use cash. Um,
Or you can't even. Like I come in multiple places where I simply cannot pay with cash. Like I get refused. Like either you pay with
yeah.
card or you go elsewhere. Like that. So that is more and more common.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And then if you combine that with a digital currency, like we could come to a situation where you can spend your money in one place, but are not allowed to spend your money in another place.
Mhm. Mhm. And
And this
depending
kind
on
of thing
your
is coming.
yeah. No, I agree. It's like depending on your even maybe like your social media posts. Like, hey, you
Yeah,
can't say that.
or
All right,
whatever, right?
you're not allowed to buy from here anymore. And if you don't own the
Like,
money, if it's not actually your money, if it's a central bank digital currency, well then you don't own the money. They can technically do that.
yeah,
I know in China they have ECNY, but they also have they use Weibo a lot. They're like a messaging app with for payments as well, which is pretty cool. But in other words, the government obviously is very closely tied to in all companies there, really. So
yeah,
they have things where if you they also have cameras quite quite often all over the place, like most cities do anyway. But uh, they have facial recognition. I saw this thing from some people living in China, some Westerners living in China, where they like I was jaywalking across the road essentially, and one of the facial recognition cameras saw him, recognized him, and then withdrew a fine from his account, Weibo account, by the time he crossed the road. So,
immediately. And there's always a case to be made for that, right? That's not too bad, but it it
it's not too
it
bad, but it's
becomes
like,
more
you know,
it becomes more and more heavy. Like, hey, if I get a fine right now, I first get a letter, and I'm like, okay, I need to pay that fine so I can plan for it. But this person obviously might not be able to do groceries anymore because it's already been withdrawn. So
yeah,
you can jaywalk back home, and that is nasty. And another thing, of course, with we've got this carbon credit score, which is first
yeah,
coming
yeah.
there for is going to go be there for companies,
Mhm,
but there's definitely speak of a personal carbon credit score.
mhm.
And
Yep.
while I like the Earth and the planet, so I
Mhm,
do think it's good that there is some incentive for us to be green and to be try and be carbon neutral or whatever. But at the same time, like I don't want my carbon credit score or the government to decide what month I can buy meat or what month I cannot. So
yeah,
that
yeah.
my digital currency says, well, no, you can no longer spend any money in the at the butchers, right? And then, but I'm gonna buy that meat for other people. They still have carbon credit scores. No, no, you're not allowed. Like that, what? So
Yeah, yeah,
this is
yeah.
the kind of thing
Mhm,
where I think that cryptocurrency is definitely going to receive a lot of interest still because it's a real asset and at the same time it is liquid. So
mhm,
real assets, of course, houses are real assets, gold is real assets, and even stocks to a certain extent are real assets, but they are not as liquid. Maybe
mhm,
gold is, but even that is difficult. But
mhm,
cryptocurrency is highly liquid. I mean, it's a real asset that you can just transfer very easily, and so I think it will be the future of money, really, because at least for people who are conscientious about their privacy.
mhm.
It might become illegal at some point, but that's a different
Yeah.
it is a war actually we're fighting
Yeah, yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Mhm.
All this to say that there will be a next bull run, that there's definitely
No, but that's true.
there's
No, that's a long conversation, that whole thing, and there's something that very
yeah.
interests me quite a lot.
Yeah, 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 me too, definitely. Yeah, especially now, for example, oh man, here we go again. Like Germany, we have an issue, right? Germany needs to Germany is not able to deal with its money the same way that America is now. It's impossible to raise or for Europe it's impossible to raise the interest rates as much as America does.
Mhm,
Simply because a lot of loans have been given out lots and lots of euros have
mhm.
been given out already and are they people don't need to repay them yet, or the banks that loaned them
Yeah.
don't need to repay them yet. So if interest rates are increased right now, then the people who held those
Mhm,
loans or still hold them can essentially get free money, and that would be highly unfair. So there's a sort of a lock there. Uh, where the interest rates cannot really
mm,
be increased. And then what do you do, right? How do you control inflation then? So that the real answer to that would probably be money control,
mhm,
because for example, I'd rather hold dollars right now. I don't really want to hold euros except for my daily spendings.
mhm,
So I've already bought a lot of dollars, and I hold that. But what if
mhm,
everyone does that? Then the euro falls. Like it's like something fierce,
mhm,
and that's a problem, right? So what are you going to do then as a government? Probably at some point, as European government or local governments, you're gonna prevent people from buying different currencies,
mhm.
and and that's
It's a
scary as
common
well,
thing in.
right? And it's
It's
yeah,
definitely a
go ahead.
common thing. A lot of
Yeah,
countries do that.
that's yeah, so freedom is being infringed in a lot of ways, and
Mhm.
well, cryptocurrency is a way to deal with that. Um,
Yeah.
right. And actually, the actual question, like, midterm elections and stuff. Like, I was considering like the insanity of such rallies. Yesterday, I was really thinking about that because midterm elections, Santa Claus rally, stuff like that. Like, it's pure emotion, nothing else. The economy hasn't changed. Like, nothing. It's just like a sort of a celebratory spending, or oh yeah, Santa Claus is coming, so we're gonna buy some stocks. Like, what is that? And since it's emotional, it's gonna be short-lived. So there might be a rally, of course, because people are emotional beings, and some of them are insane. So yeah, there might be a rally. But I would try and find the top of that rally and short the hell out of it. Like, let's not take it seriously, because we are obviously still in a contraction period for our main currencies, like dollar and stuff.
Hmm.
All right, a lot about that. Um, Neat Grape, moving on with hey there, leaf blower. Um, when we talk about self-repaying loans in Finium, will X-Grape appreciation will be used to actually repay the loan by being sold off, excuse me, for assets, or be put into the pool, or simply raise the value of our collateral and therefore our health factor and borrowing limit? I would say the last,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how it works. Yeah, and that works the same for technically SAVAX as well, and
Yeah,
any sort of yield bearing asset would work that way too.
nice. Yeah, clear enough. All right. Neatwen wants to know, what will Vinium's unique selling points be? How will it stand out from its competitors? I think we've mentioned quite a couple of those already in this
Hmm.
talk.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, basic gist is we're more of like a lending hub. Obviously, to start with, I guess a lending protocol is kind of like a cornerstone protocol. You can have multiple that do essentially the same thing. Like you have Benkey on AVAX on Avalanche that is already has a very large market. They have hundreds of millions of dollars in there, and they do essentially the same thing as Aave. They have the SAVAX staking, but that's a separate product that they have. Um, so they maybe adjust the risk models a little bit, and essentially now they're have a good market share by offering the same service. So in other words, and it's good to not have monopoly anyway on chain, regardless. But in saying so, we're a little bit different in that we're offering more of a rounded product, I guess, where we focused a little bit more on leveraged yields. So we'll be having leveraged yield farming come up soon as well, but you can technically already do it with when X-Rate launches, and then leveraging that around. Plus, we're going to implement some other yield-bearing assets that you can loop around as well. Likely GLP. We already have SAMX, but that's kind of standard. Um, and then as well, we have the leverage yield farming specifically for base pairs, but also long tail assets. Sort of more riskier assets, but they're isolated pools, and that's similar to Vinium, the base Vinium Aave style with isolated pools as well. Um, for risk minimization of risked tokens, which Aave will definitely not list, which makes sense. But we can do it in an isolated way and still preserve good risk management, but offer those sort of long tail assets as well. And one of the other things we'll be doing is NFT lending, both peer to peer and peer to pool eventually as well, on sort of more blue chip collections that have more standardized floor prices and whatnot that can be priced accordingly. So we're more of like a lending hub than a single pool type lending platform like Aave. We'll initially start like them and then build on top of it, basically.
And I also think that since we're going to do all those kind of things like looping for leverage yields and stuff like that, that means that there will be automatic borrowing within those loops, and that means that the borrowing rate will go up, and as the borrowing rate goes up, then also the leverage, the collateral, the rate for the APY for the collateral will go up. I'm sorry, I didn't, my words, I lost them. But that will make it very, very attractive
Mm-hmm.
um, for other people to come and put up collateral with us, simply because so many people borrow. And this is how it will grow. So it doesn't need a lot of differences from
Mm-hmm.
the standardized stuff like Aave to be attractive. Um, Simply a few of these features can already do it,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I personally looking at a bright future for Affinium. Okay, those were the. Oh wait, there was this one question, and that's Gas It Up, and Gas It Up has asked also in the AMA live chat, like, what his question can be answered. So let's go about it. And says, what do you do about the ERC20 error when staking vintage meme on the game?
I think you may have to remove some decimal places. That may be the issue that you have. I know that that's kind of a thing that happens sometimes.
Right. So that means that
So
if
yeah.
you push max, then it gives you all the decimals, and if you just remove a few at
Mm-hmm.
the end, then there will be no issue anymore because it
Yeah.
doesn't calculate them correctly, especially
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
decimal probably.
Yeah. Try
Okay.
that. Yeah. Should fix it.
Yeah. Also, these kind of questions are actually not really for an AMA, but Saint says make it a
Winemaker
whole new
group.
one.
Yeah. You go in the winemaker chat. Uh,
Yeah.
someone would definitely be able to. Well, someone would definitely have experienced that and being able to help you out for sure. Or you can open a ticket as well.
Okay. Checking the AMA live chat. When resupply for Caucus, will
Mm.
Caucus be minted or auctioned?
Yeah, we're probably going to mint all of them ourselves and then auction them off. Probably give a few away as well. And then yeah, in terms of time, uh, sooner rather than later. We'll give notice, but I'm not going to hold off for too long to do it.
Cool. Chiadeso wants to know, will there be an option to hold or lock a specific amount of grape to receive benefits on Finium? Now, the thing is, yeah, it's going to be wine shares, and NeetGob also says that. NeetGob is funny, by the way. Yeah, so if you want benefits from Vinium, you can either just buy wine and stake that. Not yet, by the way, but if you just stake it in a winery in the future, you will get some revenue there. And of course, if you do hold and lock grape, and then especially X grape, then you can borrow against it, which is also a profit in a way, because you'll keep your X grape, and that will stay yield bearing, and still you will be able to borrow against it. I think that oh, he specifies, yeah, that's revenue, but maybe you could say if you use a locked enough grape, you can use more features on Vinium.
There may be something like that.
Well,
I guess. I mean, we haven't haven't. There's no plans for that right now, but there's some possible thing like that, I guess. The issue with Grape is that it's unlimited supply. Really, is that for like an exclusive feature, you kind of want a limited supply token to offer to, or token or NFT or something like that to offer that. But some sort of maybe some burn mechanism or something like that for some bonus is something that we can think about.
So it's a nice suggestion, I would say. Neat Grape. Yeah. Saint says Alpha seeking great stuff, LB. Oh, that's nice. Neat Grape wants to know, is there a way for an oracle to read the X-Grape price off of the actual contract, which determines the real price of X-Grape rather than reading it from the LP? That's hard,
The
I think.
yeah the price of X Grape on the contract itself is obviously how much LP you can get for it. But if we're going to be using it as collateral for to borrow assets that are there for price in US dollars, then we need a US dollar value for X Grape. And obviously how you get the US dollar, like how you get the US dollar value of Grape, of X Grape, is through the LP pair, because obviously the LP has 50% MIM, 50% Grape, and then from that ratio of how much Grape there is to MIM, you determine, like, that's how the actual price is formed. So we do need to use the LP to get the actual price, because that's where it comes from in US dollars. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And still, even then, oracles are a trade on itself. Like they are its own thing. Like even Chainlink, which is pretty good and pretty well known, has trusted oracles in the end, and then they had a problem with having trusted oracles, and they solved that problem by adding more trusted oracles, and it that makes it safer and safer, but not trustless. I mean, the whole point about being on chain is being trustless, and that is still an issue, and that's simply because the US dollar is not on chain, so they can't make it
Yeah.
trustless. But you can make it almost trustless. Okay. Uh, Good. I think that's it for today. Only
I
23
have
minutes over the hour.
I
Oh,
can speak
wait.
on some.
Oh,
Oh,
I hear
hi.
Dave. Hello, Dave.
You guys had such a good talk. I was just waiting. I was eating
Oh, great.
breakfast.
Oh, the whole
But I
team is on.
Yeah,
can
nice.
head back about 30 minutes to hype videos.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
get those up when Vinium launches publicly. And then as far as the education stuff, Nikki, that you touched on, I'm still working on that list because it's been quite a few updates since we've made new videos. So I'm going to be getting you that.
Yeah.
And then marketing, Vinium is sponsoring the Walrus Radio podcast, but those ads aren't going to start until Vinium launches. So there is quite a bit of marketing and media stuff on deck.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much, Dave, for the addition. I was gonna send you a message, but I'll do that after the AMA. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. I see that we also have Steve and Nick and Banders on the stage. Do any of you guys want to say anything? Now's your chance.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
How you
Steve.
going,
Welcome.
Steve?
Well, how we doing, guys?
Yeah, good man. Good. What's been happening? You gonna
Pretty all right, yeah.
share some stuff you've been doing?
So, that Avalanche event that was in Berkeley, California. First off, I just want to say that I learned a shit ton. Learned a lot about subnets and what's coming to Avalanche, which is pretty cool. Met a lot of cool people out there and met a lot of cool projects that I feel we can have some synergy with in the future. So I'm just working on making those connections and figuring out how to fit those puzzle pieces together a little bit better. One of them is Savvy DeFi, which is kind of doing something a little similar to us, but not really. But they're doing non-liquidating auto-repaying loans. So they're working on some stuff they haven't launched yet, but they're going to be offering like derivative tokens that bear yield. So I think it would be pretty cool if we do something with them in the future. Go pools out there. They do like subnets as a service kind of and build you like your own custom subnet, but they're going to have liquid staking as well. So I feel like, a yield bearing derivative token there as well would be kind of cool. They raised over like 5 million in like funding to get the project started from what I read, which is pretty cool. So I think that they're going to be pretty big. I learned a shit ton about subnets and what Avalanche is working on with them. And I think it's going to be pretty massive. Also talked to Trader Joe again because they were there. And I guess I don't know if I can share or not, or how it's actually going, because I haven't had a chance to really talk to you, LB. But I know that we're kind of in a race right now to build them some sort of auto balancing feature for their liquidity. So they said that if we build it first, because they're waiting on somebody to build it, so whoever kind of like does it first wins. But if we build it first, then they'll give us a massive amount of support and exposure for building this feature. And then there's also, you know, I didn't get a chance to really like ask them too much, but there's talks of like grants and stuff like that as well for building this feature, which is pretty cool. I got a chance to connect with the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer of Avalanche. Really cool dude. Got to hear his story. Got really inspired by his story, and I kind of just asked him if he was ever willing to like mentor anybody. And I'm going to be setting up, I want to say, he said weekly, but he seems like a pretty busy guy, so I want to say probably like bi-weekly or monthly calls with him to just generally learn and whatnot, and talk about like what we're doing in the space and how we can work together better in the future. And I would say, other than that, California and San Francisco is a vibe, but other than that, that's just some stuff that I've been working on. Just trying to get these connections built a little bit better. I got to chat a little bit more intimately with some of the other Ava Labs team members that I haven't met yet, and they're really cool, really laid back, and really kind of looking forward to what we're doing. So I know NB, LB, and I want to set up a call with them at some point in time, but we just kind of want to, get together first and figure out exactly what we kind of, I don't want to say want from them, but like kind of generally how we see each other working together. So other than that, just looking to wait for us to go cross chain, because I have the Binance, one of the Binance BD team members waiting for me to schedule a call with him for whenever we do want to go cross chain. We can go to Binance very quickly as well. And yeah, that's just about what I've been working on for the most part.
Quite a few
Nice.
things.
Really nice.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week. Also, just a funny story. So Savvy DeFi pitched at the event because there was a pitch day, which I didn't really know about.
You could have done some
So-
flips.
I honestly, I did a couple at the event, and then the last night I was there, I went to go see Benny Benassi, and I was just doing backflips the whole time. Not even gonna lie to you. So they used me in their pitch because on the flight over, I bought like the Wi-Fi on the plane, and I went to go and connect my phone, and I was using GMX to kind of like leverage trade, and I was shorting AVAX, which is super ironic. And if that ain't karma, I don't know what is, because I'm going to an AVAX event and shorting it on my way there. But got liquidated while I was on the plane, so got rugged by the airline.
35x, you 35x leverage.
30 actually.
30,
yeah,
30 is the max. 30.5 is max.
They're coming out
Yeah,
with
I
50 soon, so you can
Oh, really?
bump it up.
So
don't
you
call
can
me
get
that.
you can get liquidated in a 2% move. That's no brainer.
Yeah, why not? But then you can also make money so much faster, though. You know, so it's like degen's gonna degen, man. It's just it is what it is. But I told them that, and it's funny because they actually used me in their pitch, and they were like, "Yeah, some people got liquidated on the flight over here," and I'm just like, "Yo, guys, that's I appreciate it." But lots of cool stuff out there. Lots of knowledge that I gained. Like I said, especially about subnets. What they actually are kind of crazy. Like it made me so much more bullish on Avalanche as a whole. Just because like they pretty much give you the tools, but everything is so customizable that like the sky's the limit. So they pretty much give you the tools and they're like, here, build whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I just think that
subnets are pretty cool. They allow for very efficient scaling, and stuff like that. If you have a good use case for them, for sure. I mean, why don't you? I don't know how much time we have or how much people want to listen, but you learn so much about them. Why don't you just tell everybody what, kind of explain what they are and what that brings to the Avalanche ecosystem.
so this is actually kind of funny.
Time, by the
because-
way, I think we should just continue this conversation because it's gold. And if people want to, stop listening, then they will simply stop listening, right?
Sure.
So go
All
ahead.
right,
Yeah,
so-
Steve.
At the end of the day, there was one of the days where I had one of the video crew give me or like interview me and ask me like a series of questions, and one of them was to describe subnets like I'm 5. And this was my answer for the most part. So a lot of the times that we've seen from like Krabata and other kind of projects that have very high volume and transactions slows down the network, and so it makes everything that much more expensive, even though that that's kind of relative compared to like Ethereum. You're still paying way less, but still for people on Avalanche, they're kind of like, what the hell. So the way that I kind of think about it is that in order to kind of scale, they scale vertically in the sense that it's the main network is almost like a traffic jam, and you're just blocked up with tons and tons of traffic. So you're crawling to get to somewhere. Now, a subnet is built underneath the main network that's actually going to kind of validate these transactions for this specific project that created this subnet, kind of like your GPS when it tells you, hey, listen, you could save 5 minutes by taking this route instead. So instead of being on the actual main road and being in all that traffic, that project has their transactions flowing in a subnet underneath the main net, which is kind of unclogging the actual network. So it allows the main network to not be as congested, especially when it's like high volume projects like Grabata. And the use cases for them are great. I mean, I know we're not at that point yet, but I personally saw a use case for us. And I learned a lot more about how they work, but I don't understand a lot of the compatibility with everything or kind of like how it would actually be done. So I know that I learned this recently that with subnets, you can kind of make them and customize them to the point where you pay gas fees in the project native token, which would be really cool for an inflationary asset like Grape. So I figured that, like having a subnet for us would be really cool, especially for the game, because imagine every time you were doing a transaction, regardless if it was compounding, playing the game, doing pretty much anything, you were just burning Grape. So I felt like that would like help contract supply so much more. But it is quite expensive to set up an actual subnet because you need a pretty decent amount of validators, and that requires a pretty decent amount of AVAX. So I think once
And you need
Vinium,
to validate on the main chain as well, right? So like it's not just setting up a subnet and getting like, validators on your subnet. It's if you need to actually stake and validate on the main net in order to even validate on your subnet.
yes. Also, they're
So
coming
how
out
many
with,
validators would that take, though? How many validators
I mean,
on the mainnet
y-
would it take?
you could probably take a look at like what some of the other projects that I know of that have done subnets. You said Krabata. I know that DeFi Kingdoms, they did an AVAX subnet. And just for basic knowledge, the C chain is a subnet, right? So AVAX mainnet is the X chain, and then there's the P chain, which is their staking chain, and then there's the actual C chain, which is a subnet. So we're actually already using subnets if people didn't know that.
I mean, I didn't know that.
Thank
So
you.
you learn something new every
Yeah.
day.
So the C chain is the EVM subnet. So
Yes.
Right.
And I would say that because somebody actually asked this question in Twitter Spaces that was held by Avalanche recently, and it was to do with subnets specifically. And the answer that they gave was that, you in theory can get away with one, but for like security, you would want a couple, maybe at least like 3 or 4, just because just in case one validator goes down, you still have, kind of like backups a little bit, but, in theory, all 4 validators could go down. So, it really just kind of depends. The having like multiple kind of gives you a little bit more security. And I know that they just released an update as well with, I think it's called like BAMF or something like that, to where the subnets can actually communicate with each other now. So they're doing like cross communicating or cross messaging like subnets, which I think is pretty cool. I still am not 1,000% sure how it works. I was kind of low key. The next time I talked to LB, I was going to ask him to explain it to me like I was 5. But I think that would be pretty cool and pretty handy. I just am not exactly sure how it fits with us yet, because I know that having your own subnet, you would kind of be like bottlenecked with liquidity a little bit, and like people would have to bridge
Yeah.
over. If the C chain is a subnet already, and there's already there's starting to like cross subnet messaging, and they'd be able to communicate with each other, I wonder if that would like eliminate that kind of bottleneck for liquidity and make it so that like you don't have to necessarily bridge over. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's something with the Benef update. I think that's possible. Well, it's at least possible that you have messaging cross subnets where you have some action on some network, like maybe mainnet, that then translates to an action on your subnet. I believe if you want to actually get tokens over or something like that, you would still need to bridge, but you can I guess, bypass that just with you can design it in a way, I guess, where you just rely on the messaging itself. But subnets are really good for games, especially. That's something that we've seen. The main use for it right now, obviously for good reason. You have subnets. You have games requiring a lot of transactions. Game users don't really. It's bad UX to have to pay gas as well, but also do a transaction all the time. So you can limit some of that if you run on a subnet. We have there's game specific subnets for you to build games on it. Like there's a one called like Swimmer or something like that. But subnets are also good for like application specific things. I guess you could make one that's maybe a low latency trading one, trading specifically for like an order book exchange or something like that. Obviously as well for like permissioned uses, because you can have access gates like KYC or something like that, or people need to validators even need to have be part of a certain group or something like that. So there'll be a lot of institutions that use subnets as well. I think there was a major one that got announced recently. I forgot the name of it, but a major institution coming to Avalanche specifically to build a subnet for their own use case. So that's pretty much perfect reason for it. And there's some way that I've been kind of looking into what we can do with it, especially on the game side, because it's really really well built for a game, especially considering that it's you can make it an isolated system, and a game doesn't really need too much external interfacing, I guess you could say. So something definitely explored, something unique about it, Avalanche as well, that I like.
Yeah.
100%. Go ahead, Nikki.
No, go ahead. No, I was just trying to wrap that up a little bit. But if you want to respond, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, that whole event kind of made me bullish on Avalanche as a whole, honestly. Also, Loki, Naruto might be coming to Avalanche as a game, so I'm also super excited about that. With a little weeb, I am. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. And that's pretty much like a synopsis of the event, besides me getting an Avalanche beanbag chair.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
low-key hyped for.
Nice. Thank you so much, Steve, for your addition to this AMA, and also Dave and Nick for for explaining that we're already on a subnet. I mean, you don't have to say a lot to actually say a lot, if you know what I mean. All right. I guess that's it for this AMA. Thank you all for being here and for being here so long as well. Like we've almost done 2 hours. I don't want to make this into a standard thing, but we keep going over the hour all the time. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe it's just fun. Anyway,
Just blame
I've been enjoying
daylight
myself.
savings time. Just blame daylight
Yeah,
savings
yeah,
time.
let's do that. Yeah. That's why. That's why. And it's misty
We all
outside.
gained an
That's
hour
another
today
reason.
in the U.S. Yeah, we all gained an hour in the U.S. today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've already had that hour for a week, but yeah, I'm happy you're here now. uh, Thank you so much, though, for being here and for having those talks. And yeah, once again, thanks to the community for sticking with us. And it's all looking bright, actually. Even though it's a bear market, I think we're looking bright.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, that's about it. Anyone want to say goodbye still?
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for listening in. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening in, guys.
Don't get liquidated.
No, like with that.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.